I'm Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com.
And I'm Scott Chasen with Fog.net.
This is a replay of WIBW's TV show, The Drive.
Here's this week's episode on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network.
Good evening, Wildcat and Jayhawk fans, and welcome to Season 14 of The Drive, Season 5 here on WIBW. And we're sponsored by FlintHillsAuto.com. I am Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com, and the man to my right, once again this season, is Scott Chasen of Fog.net. Welcome. Football's here.
I'm just glad to be back. I wasn't. It was touch and go for a little bit. Our relationship was fractured doing the show.
I know. We went into negotiations with other people. Nobody else wanted to do the show, so you're back.
You're stuck with me.
Not true. You can interact with us on social media at Facebook.com/The Drive Show, on Twitter at The Drive 13, and of course, answer our weekly poll question and make your game predictions over at thedriveshow.com. And something new this year, if you ever miss an episode of The Drive, you can listen to an audio-only version that will appear each Monday morning in the form of a podcast at both GoPowerCat.com and Fog.net. Now we will start things off with our 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill is sponsored by Hula Hands. They've been expecting you. Now let's eat.
Well, the Bill Snyder era is finally over at Kansas State, and former North Dakota State coach Chris Klieman won 4 FCS national titles in 5 seasons in Fargo. Is the new coach. Fitz, what are the biggest obstacles to success facing Coach Chris Klieman?
You know, what's very interesting is he moves up to the Big 12 level, and in some ways he's got less overall talent. I think he's got better star power, maybe. I mean, North Dakota State puts players in the NFL on a regular basis, but he really lacks depth. He takes over a program that had dwindled on the recruiting trail. Its presence had fallen, and really Coach Snyder and his staff were not quite getting the same number of players that they had been in the past, and it was slowly dying on the vine, if you want to say it that way. So he takes over a program that has some very, very good players, and there's one of them. And of course, that is Skylar Thompson, the quarterback. And I tell you what, Scott, they're going to really struggle at times if they get into injuries, because there's a couple positions. Scotty Hazelton, the defensive coordinator, talked to us about this last week. If they get defensive injuries at, say, linebacker or the secondary, they just don't have many bodies. They really run thin pretty quickly, and they might have to delve into some true freshmen sooner than they would like to. And of course, that new rule where you can play a true freshman 4 or fewer games and they maintain their red shirt could help a team like K-State and KU, because you can supplement in times of trouble. You can throw some new guys in and try to get some minutes out of them to bridge the gap.
Yeah, and one question I think that was asked when he was hired, when he was brought in the first place, recruiting-wise, what is the caliber of player that can be expected year after year, especially maybe if the first couple seasons aren't great? Where do you think that kind of stands at?
You know, it's intriguing because Klieman really isn't much different than what Coach Snyder was in his philosophy. They did this at North Dakota State. They really are trying to develop players. Now, we saw from their recruiting effort in the little time they had with the 19 class, and now as they moved into 20 with some early commitments. They are getting a little bit better player, a little bit more athletic bodies, just a little bit more. They're still 3 stars, but they're higher 3 stars. You know, it's just not a stagnant star rating. There's actually levels in there. Sure. And I think, like any program, they'll try to stair-step that up as they go. It'll be very interesting to see how that works. The Les Miles era of KU football is about to kick off, and KU's new coach has been using words such as dominant and championships throughout the offseason. Scott, what do you think Miles is trying to accomplish with such lofty talk?
Yeah, it's interesting because you really haven't heard a KU coach talk like that. And you know, I think back to Big 12 Media Day, where he was asked, how many years is it going to take you to make a New Year's Six bowl? And I think people chuckled at that question. It's a little bit of a silly question, considering just the state of the KU football program for the last decade. But again, this is what Les Miles has talked about. He has made it very clear that the goal is championships. In fact, on the kind of the team meeting room on that back wall, they have their goals listed. And number 1, right along with graduating 100% of players, is win a national championship. Big 12 championship's a little bit lower, so they would obviously like that too. But no, he's not shying away from it. And I think part of what Les Miles has to do to be successful at Kansas is be Les Miles, quite frankly. He's never been a guy that X's and O's, some inventive offense that he's going to throw at you, and it's just going to, totally baffle you, and you just can't schematically figure out, necessarily what they're doing. He relies on the same base concepts. He relies on bringing in players that he knows can work, playing tough football, and look, KU has been very aggressive, not only with hires, bringing in guys like Emmett Jones, the wide receivers coach at Texas Tech, who's heralded as a great recruiter, especially a great Texas recruiter. Think about DJ Elliott, defensive coordinator, formerly at Colorado, Kentucky. Another good hire. He's not only been aggressive with those guys, he's been aggressive on the recruiting trail too. KU hadn't landed a 4-star Texas high school recruit since 2005. They've already signed one, they've got another committed. So I think that's just kind of the way Les Miles is trying to go about this.
Is he going to be a coach that kind of just lets game day evolve with his coordinators? They take care of it, and if a big decision needs to be made, he does it?
I would think that would be certainly part of it. I think a lot of people are looking for that. I think the equation changes when Chip Lindsey, your first choice at offensive coordinator especially, is no longer there, and now it's Les Canning. But Brent Dearman's another guy that I know they're relying on a little bit. He actually wrote a book on RPOs, so you could say he wrote the book on RPOs.
Nice.
He's going to have a little bit of a role in that offense too. I do think it'll be a case where you're kind of hearing from a little bit of a, different voices, maybe like a CEO type thing.
Very good.
Well, everyone seems to agree that Oklahoma and Texas are the top 2 teams in the league and will likely play in the Big 12 championship game again. What other teams could displace the 2 in the conference race?
Well, I mean, the votes are clear, and I don't just think it's homerism with the big media types. These are the 2 best teams in the league. And if you look at the polls, and I would tend to agree with them, the one team that could be an upstart is Iowa State. Maybe Iowa State can supplant those teams and sneak in there. I don't know. Just don't know if Iowa State has enough, but I'm a Matt Campbell believer. In fact, I see some similarities in what he's trying to build in Ames to what Bill Snyder did in Manhattan. And it's kind of that slow step up. He's got an experienced quarterback, right? And it's just going to be fun to watch. This conference is chaos, though. I mean, the poll was pretty easy to look at. They had Texas and Oklahoma. Then they had the 4 other schools with returning coaches, and the 4 schools with new coaches were at the bottom of the poll. And it's not going to be that way, is it? It's going to get shuffled.
Yeah, no, there's always at least, first of all, one team that just surprises everyone. But, I looked down at that poll. West Virginia got AP top 25 votes. They're replacing a head coach. They're replacing a quarterback who was one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in Will Grier. And I just think it's so interesting because Oklahoma State is a team I've seen some people be higher on than others. TCU, another one of those teams. Me personally, I do think it'll be Oklahoma and Texas, and I think they may have a pretty sizable lead even over in Iowa State. I'm not down on Iowa State, certainly,
No.
but I think they will clearly establish themselves as the best 2 teams. I think quarterback play, a big reason why there. But no, there's going to be someone in this conference. There are too many teams that you go around the league and you can find people saying, I like them. There's value you can get if you think they're going to be better than maybe others are saying.
Well, for now at least, the polls are following the talent. Texas has always had talent. It just hasn't been well coached. And now under Tom Herman, it is well coached. Oklahoma and Texas are the 2 best and the 2 most talented teams in this conference. And it's really not close in terms of talent. But someone will jump up there, and I think everyone kind of looks to TCU because Gary Patterson's such an experienced coach, and if he can solve his quarterback issue, which is a big if for any program, they know he's going to have a good defense.
Yeah, think about how different the Big 12 is now, just than it was a few. It's still going to be a lot of passing, still going to be whatever, but the amount of coaching turnover in the conference is kind of fascinating. Really, even Lincoln Riley, Tom Herman, you could throw those guys in there too.
Yep, very good. Now a quick look at your poll question results, and poll questions are brought to you by Film and 11, your go fast, look good, play hard custom shop. And of course, we didn't have a poll question, so we will move on to this week's poll.
Well, this week's question is, how many years will it take the Jayhawks to make a bowl game under Les Miles? And your choices here are A, 1 or 2 seasons, 3 seasons is B, 4 seasons or more, which is C, and D, less is not more, it won't happen. Vote at thedriveshow.com. Well, that will do it for this half of the 2-minute drill, but we will be right back with more on KU and K-State on The Drive.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
Welcome back to The Drive as we continue our weekly 2-minute drill. And of course, the 2-minute drill is still sponsored by Hula Hands. They've been expecting you. Now, let's eat. And KU won't have running back Puka Williams for the first game of the season. Scott, how will that change the KU offense against Indiana State?
It changes it a lot. I mean, you're not only talking about the Jayhawks' best player, the best player last year, you're talking about, their best NFL prospect, one of the best players in the Big 12 Conference. This was the preseason first-team All-Big 12 running back. Last year, a first-team All-Big 12 running back. A guy who was a first-team's all-purpose player as well. He not only was a threat, obviously in the run game, he had a bunch of receiving yards, a few receiving touchdowns. He even threw a touchdown pass against Oklahoma, and it was a pretty accurate throw. It was probably the most accurate throw a KU quarterback made last year. Not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. It was a very nice throw, tightrope kind of down the sideline in the end zone. But no, obviously when you lose a dynamic player like Puka Williams, it's got to be everyone by committee. Let's start with the running game. Khalil Herbert is a guy, you've heard his name for a long, long time. 291 rushing yards in a game his sophomore season against West Virginia. So that wasn't against some non-conference opponent you've never heard of. That was against a pretty decent team at least. So he's a guy who's had production, who's had 20-plus carries in a game a number of different times. That won't be anything unfamiliar for him. I think he's number one. Behind him, you have some decent depth. Velton Gardner is a freshman running back that the players are really high on. They think he's quick and shifty. You have Dom Williams, another running back who's been around this program a while, and you've got a lot of unproven weapons on the outside. So this may be a game where a guy like Thomas McVitie or Carter Stanley, one of the quarterbacks, really needs to show, hey, I've got control of this team. I'm going to step up and lead the offense here.
So is this going to be an offense that runs through Puka typically and the running backs?
I would say that not only is that Les Miles' MO, I think that's what he's going to have to do at Kansas. Mm-hmm. And I think he would be willing to adapt and play to his personnel. I mentioned RPOs. I think that's going to be a huge part of what they do. You got to imagine Puka Williams has a great chance not only to lead this team in rushing. I think there's an outside shot he could lead it in receiving and in return yards. I think he's that kind of playmaker, and that's not a slam on the receivers or anyone else. I just think you want to get him the ball.
Well, it seems like he's a good football player. They probably need him in every game.
I would agree with you there. Well, last season, Skylar Thompson shared quarterback snaps with Alex Delton, who has since transferred to TCU. Is Thompson ready to be the clear #1 quarterback for the Wildcats, and what does he need to do to grow into that role?
Oh, he better be. Yeah, it's his job, and they made it very clear that it's his job. They have not messed around with this. Chris Kleiman kind of gave him the keys to the offense and in some ways the team. He made a lot of decisions in the summer workouts when coaches couldn't really have any part in it. So they asked Skylar to really take a leadership role. In dealing with Skylar Thompson, every member of the media will tell you this is a completely different young man than we dealt with last year and the year before. He is very relaxed. He seems at peace. Seems to know what he's expected. to do and what he needs to do. Now he has to execute it. We've seen glimpses of this guy as being a very, very good quarterback, that he can really make plays both running and throwing. But he will be asked primarily to throw the ball and manage the offense. The quarterbacks do run in this North Dakota State offense that Courtney Messingham has come to run as offensive coordinator, but not as much as what K-State has done in the past. The quarterback will not be a battering ram as they tended to become at times in Bill Snyder's offense. And yet he's going to have to throw the ball with greater precision, get to that second, third read, just make better game management decisions and really perpetuate drives. And they talk about that a lot, Scott. They talk about, not taking that risk downfield if it's not there. Just go ahead and take the check down. Go ahead and be conservative and make the plays when you can make the plays. And I really think that's what makes this offense a little bit different, as K-State was very, very conservative most of the time, and they will go for the home run ball, but they're going to want to kind of spread the field, stretch the field, almost like a spread offense without being a spread offense. A lot of motion, a lot of shifting, and really try to decipher things pre-snap. Then they'll also be under center. Skylar Thompson was never under center last year, and that offers him a chance, as he said, to drop back and start reading that defense before, instead of waiting for the snap to arrive.
Yeah, KU will be under center a little bit too. So
Weird.
A little bit of change here.
It's a strange world in which we live. As Bill Snyder always said, it always comes full circle. And now we step out of bounds, and overtime rules are different this season. The first 4 overtimes remain the same. God help you if you are in 4 overtimes. But starting with the 5th overtime, each team will simply try a 2-point conversion until one team succeeds and the other fails. Good move, or what change would you like to see with the overtime rules?
I didn't have a problem with the overtime rules. Obviously, it produced, like an 8 overtime game last year?
I think that was the problem right there.
Yeah.
The coaches and players did have a problem.
Yeah, you can call that the LSU rule in
Yeah.
games that last a long, long time. But no, I mean, college overtime is obviously going to be different than the NFL. Some people may say it's a little bit gimmicky, and look, it is a little bit gimmicky, but it's fun, right? And
I like it better than the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree too, just because, you can talk about, well, it favors this team more to go say first, but it's, hey, the ball's at the same point. You both get a chance. Go see what happens. I really like the old rules. I don't think too many games will be affected by this rule.
My 2 changes are this. First of all, I hate the fact that you can run up scores and set records for scoring. I think at the end of overtime, whoever has won the overtime should get 1 point. That's it. If it was 27-27 going to overtime, it's 28-27 at the end of overtime. Just do it that way. And also, the 25-yard line. That's a 42-yard field goal. That's your typical college kicker. That's his range. I mean, let alone the NFL, but a college kicker, you better be able to kick a 42-yard field goal or you're not very good. So you start in field goal range. Maybe that's fine for the first overtime, but start moving it back and make it a little more challenging.
Yeah.
And then maybe add in like a giant blade. I don't know. But, it just, there's too much scoring in overtime. It's too easy. And I'd like to see it amped up a little bit. And 4 overtimes, just make it 3 overtimes. If they hadn't been decided, go to the shoot off. It's like soccer now.
Yeah, I like to throw a ball, see if you can hit the goalpost. That's
Exactly.
I like it. Well, now let's hear from the fans. Our fan question this week is?
K-State was picked 9th and KU 10th in the Big 12 preseason poll. Is that fair? Will Sunflower State football become all around awful once again? That's from Joe in Topeka. No. If you've lived through how bad it was, it's not going to be nearly that bad. Even if they're 9th and 10th, they will be better teams than what it was during the toilet bowl days.
Yeah, I mean, look, these teams may very well finish 9th and 10th. It's certainly on the table. I don't think it will end up being that way, but we'll see what happens. No, I don't think it will be as bad a product as even you've seen certainly from the KU side in the last few years.
Yeah, I think someone in this league will come down, surprise people, and might not be KU finishing 10th. We'll see. I think K-State will finish higher than 9th, but who knows? There's a reason why they were picked last. People doubt it, but I don't think it's right.
Well, remember to ask us your questions on our Facebook page and on Twitter at The Drive 13. And when we return, we will make some predictions here on The Drive.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
Here it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Welcome back as we head down the home stretch of this week's show, and it's time to look at our predictions. The predictions are brought to you by Vanderbilt's Your Work Boot Center. And remember, please make your weekly predictions over at thedriveshow.com. We need you to participate and be better than us. Well, with the start of a new year and a new season, we're wiping that slate clean. We're not looking back. Well, Tom Keegan was on the list still, so we don't want to see. I brought him up, so now I just screwed that up. Now for our first picks of the year, let's start with K-State. Boys, this was not, there's no official line, so I was the odds maker on this. Minus 15 versus a pretty good Nicholls State team that I think is top 10 in the FCS. I'm still going to go with K-State.
Yeah, KU fans saw last year. Nicholls State can sneak up on you. I will take Nicholls and the underdog.
Yeah, so Chris Kleiman, this is how it feels. This is exactly how it feels when the FCS team that's pretty good comes into your stadium.
Well, next is Kansas minus 7.5 versus Indiana State. Who do you have?
I am going to go with KU. And I have very sound reasoning on that. It's that I know who he's going to pick.
Well, I'm going to take Indiana State on this one. I do think Kansas, wins a close game. Indiana State also ranked in the top 25 FCS coaches poll. This will be an interesting game. You don't have Puka Williams for it. I think it'll be a little bit tighter than people think. It wouldn't shock me if the Jayhawks won, but just a little bit closer.
Fear the Sycamores. Fear the Sycamores. Our last game of the week is Houston plus 23.5. So Oklahoma's basically favored by 24 points.
You pick this one first.
I know nothing about Houston. I'm ill prepared for this pick. I'm going to go with Oklahoma.
I'll take Houston, and a fun fact, running backs coach at Houston, former wide receivers coach.
Who'd you pick in the first one, K-State or Nicholls?
I think I took Nicholls. Did I take three underdogs?
Yeah, okay.
Justin Johnson, the running backs coach.
We're all different on these picks, so it's going to be very interesting. Again,
3-0 this week.
That means I'm 0-3. Again, make your picks at thedriveshow.com. And now it's time for our On the Clock segment. And On the Clock is sponsored by Carpet One, by Local for a strong local community. And let's start with Mr. Scott Chasen of Fog.net.
I want to set the stage for the KU program, and whose words better to use than Taylor Swift's? Her new album just came out, by the way. I know Fitz has been listening a lot to this, so more often than not, it's been nothing but cruel summers and cruel seasons for the Jayhawks since Mark Mangino. But that's why you go get Les Miles. You go get the man. He's won a championship. He's won the SEC. When it comes to football, I think he knows. And when you're Les Miles, it's nice to have a friend like DJ Elliott, defensive coordinator, Emmett Jones, the wide receivers coach, and perhaps most of all, Jeff Long, the man who hired him. So far, Miles has big talk of winning championships, and for now, those words are nothing but paper rings. If they materialize, he'll have a statue outside Memorial Stadium. If not, it'll be death by 1,000 cuts for a program that has already suffered 10 years' worth. For now, the idea of soon you'll get better and daylight on the horizon is reason enough to tell your fellow KU fans, hey, you need to calm down. There are no false gods with KU football, but if Les Miles can bring winning seasons to Lawrence, fans will think back to past coaches and say, I forgot that you existed. All right, let's shake it off. Fitz, have you heard the new Taylor Swift album? Any thoughts to give?
This never happened with Keegan. He might quote Jethro Tull, but not Taylor Swift.
I think it's very interesting that Taylor Swift's album it's essentially could have been written for the KU football program. You heard all those song titles. That's 11 of the 18. We snuck 11 of those in there.
Let me tell you, folks.
I did.
He told me that he had something scripted, which we don't usually do with our final takes. And you know what? I said, okay, this should be fun. I had no idea. I apologize to all of you for what just took place.
Oh, no, I think they're going to be fans of this. Okay. Vote at no, I'm just kidding.
Well, let's move on to K-State and a little KU in here because I'd like to make a point here. Both teams, both programs have new coaches, new direction, new hope, new optimism, unanswered questions, and a little bit of nervousness in Manhattan. I mean, honestly, Kansas, you've got nowhere to go but up. You've been 10th, and although David Beatty kind of had it moving a little bit at the end, it wasn't enough. And Les Miles inherits that. But at Kansas State, you replace a legend if you're Chris Kleiman, and that's not easy to do. The guy's name is on the stadium. His name is on the highway that leads to the stadium, and his statue is in front of the stadium. And K-State fans are a little uncertain about this. In fact, ticket sales were lagging as the season approached, but now they're beginning to near a sellout for that home opener, that season opener against Nicholls State. But my message here to both sets of fans is pretty simple. Get to the stadium. Go support your teams. I don't care if you're a K-State or KU fan. Both programs, both teams, both coaches and their new staffs need your support desperately. That's how you win games. You turn your home field into a home field advantage. And that has happened often at Kansas State, but really not at Kansas since Mark Mangino left and Taylor Swift arrived. So get to the stadium, cheer on your team, have some fun. It's college football, and the best news is it's supposed to be absolutely beautiful for that first weekend of football. So get out and enjoy it.
Yeah, perfect timing, a perfect way to kind of put a cap on all of this and take us through the first week of the new season.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of The Drive. And remember, you can catch a podcast version of the show now at either one of our websites on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network. And we will see you next week right here with another edition of The Drive and all week on social media.